Yep.
And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast, where we never sit out. These are your hosts today, Matthew Dawson and Christopher Dawson, as always. C to the D, what's going on, dude?
This is awesome. We are already thrown into an awesome weekend. Week one was fantastic. It's Labor Day. College football is back. We love it. But this is such a better weekend in terms of like high key, high profile matchup. You learned a little bit about teams in week one. Right now is where you're going to learn a lot about a lot of teams, including how about the Big 12, right? They got a ton of good games this week. Pac-12's got some interesting games. The SEC middle tiers got some interesting games. The ACC as well. I mean, obviously the Big Ten, but the highlight is Bama and Texas, which we'll get to at the end there. But it's awesome. Week two is one of my favorite weeks. You always have Iowa State, which we'll talk about this year. A&M Miami, fantastic game. Even Texas Tech, Oregon, and some interesting games. At the nightcap with the Pac-12 playing. But I love it. I love it. It starts on Friday.
Alabama, Texas is this week. Gosh, this is a crazy week, dude. And like, I just want to talk. I know we're not like a betting show, right? We talk a little bit about betting, but look at these like lines. Every game it feels like it's at a key number: 13.5, 24,
Yep.
3.5, 3.5, 7.5, 42.5, 6, 2.5, 16.5, 7.5, 7.5, 3, 10, 3, 42.5. I mean, it's like literally like I think the books don't exactly know what they're doing, and I think they're gonna end up actually doing well this week because I think people are going to overvalue some teams. They made some sharp reactions, including the first game that we're going to talk about today. Sharp changes from the books. Sharp changes. Are you ready to get into it?
Can't wait. Yep.
So let's start out with this game. Start out Nebraska going to Colorado, which by the way, last week this line was at like Nebraska minus 6.5. And then week one
Should have pounced on it.
Dang. Should have pounced on it then. And then week one happened, and we saw Colorado's offense absolutely just explode for 45 points against TCU. I mean, defense came up with timely turnovers. The defense didn't really look all that great. Their defensive line got ran all over. Once TCU kind of figured out they could run the ball, they did in the second half, and it was effective. Nebraska, it feels like that's the only thing that they did well against Minnesota. I mean, Jeff Sims throwing 3 picks, throwing 2 of them to Tyler Newman. And
Yeah.
Jeff Sims' legs on the ground was pretty good. I like Gabe Ervin Jr. I like Anthony Grant. They have a gigantic offensive line. I think this is a way interesting game. I saw a post for it was like a bet online AG, like one of the books or whatever, that was saying that there's more money on Colorado minus 3 than there is on any of the 32 NFL teams spreads this week, which is wild.
Yeah.
So
I'm
give you this.
excited.
I'll give you the nod. What's going on here?
Everything in me
What are the
wanted.
keys? What are the keys? Who needs to do what?
All right. We'll talk about number one matchup. When Nebraska has the ball is their offensive line and Gabe Ervin, right? Powerful running back. You saw him break a couple tackles and have some nice runs against Minnesota. How does can he control the game and that offensive line control the pace of the game against Colorado? If you're going to do a shootout, you are not as talented as TCU. You do not have the quarterback and the weapons TCU has. Isaiah Garcia, you're one of your leading receivers out for the year. He's done. That's tough. I think the key for Nebraska is going to be able to slow down the game. And with the accelerated game clock and all the new rules this year, that's kind of to your advantage. You can take advantage of that, turning out long possessions and shortening the game. And then on the flip side, Nebraska's got a really good secondary. If you want to hang your hat on a spot in your defense that you believe in, is your secondary, I think, for Nebraska. And even though the offense or the defense of line stopped the run against Minnesota in week one, Colorado doesn't really care about running, not to the extent that Minnesota does or some other teams that Nebraska will play later on. It's going to be about limiting explosive plays with Shedeur Sanders, keeping him in the pocket, getting pressure on him, and then also not letting yourself be one-on-one with Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter. You can have, and even Weaver too. I mean, that's the problem. They got some matchup nightmares, but Nebraska's defense certainly better than TCU's. That's what I'm looking for. I think that secondary matchup with the the talented receiving cores and offensive skill weapons that Colorado has, I think is going to be awesome. And I think also the the atmosphere at Folsom Field is going to be rocking. I think I can't wait. I think credit to Deion Sanders week one, credit to Fox. It's going to be a fantastic atmosphere, and I'm certainly going to be up and ready for that game at 11 a.m., 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Central or what's it local time? 10 a.m. But they're going to be ready to go there in Colorado.
Yeah, I from a sharp standpoint, look, I think my heart tells me Colorado wins the game, right? But man, I want to take Nebraska +3 so bad. So I think there's a really good chance it comes down to a field goal here and the Colorado gets just like it did last week with TCU. Except I think it might be I think it could still be a high scoring affair as well. Just like it was last week. I think Nebraska, not that they're an explosive offense, but they can run the ball. Right. And Colorado didn't feel like they could stop it at all. So I'm gonna go with Colorado to win the game. If it was at 3.5, I'd take Nebraska to cover, but I'll say it. My guess is it's a 3-point game. So Colorado to win the game, Nebraska +3.
Yeah, everything in my gut is telling me Nebraska should win this game. Everything. I think something that we're going to talk about later on with a lot of these games this week, with teams that had super high week ones and super low week ones that are playing each other. And I think in college football, you see the equilibrium effect take on where you have teams that come back to neutral, right? Colorado's going to not play as well as they did against TCU. Nebraska won't play as bad as it did against Minnesota. And you're going to have a really, really good matchup. Because on the surface, it looks like, oh my gosh, Colorado -3. That's why all these people are betting on it. And that's why I want to take Nebraska, because I feel like that equilibrium is going to come back. The problem is Deion Sanders and his effect and the talent, the upper echelon talent that Colorado has is better than Nebraska, right? So it's going to be hard to bet against Deion and Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. So Colorado at home, better quarterback, most talented player in the field on both sides of the ball with Travis Hunter playing both ways. Give me Colorado to win and Colorado to cover.
Let's go to Friday nights. Illinois at Kansas. This is another game where Illinois going into the season is favored by about a touchdown. After week one, the line has shifted all the way to Kansas -3 or Illinois +3, if that interests you. Actually, I think it opened this week at +3.5. So hopefully, maybe some people got on that early. But yeah, is Jalen Daniels going to play? I don't know. I really don't know. I think Jason Bean is a really good backup. So I don't see like a huge drop off there. This line's not at -3 because Jalen Daniels is healthy, right? I think it's at -3 because they just looked really good last week. Luke Griffin, the receiver, is also questionable. And Illinois kind of struggled putting away Toledo. Well, I say putting away. They had to go down and score, right? And take a field goal to win the game. Now, Luke Altmaier, I think, looked pretty good in that game. I think of the quarterbacks in the Big Ten, I thought he looked like one of the best, which is crazy.
Especially
Big Ten
Big Ten
East
West.
and West.
The Big Ten West. Yeah.
Yes. I think both sides. I think he looked fantastic. So yeah, I think they just got to get their playmakers, just get on the ball. I think they didn't run the ball super effectively, but I think they will against Kansas. I don't think Kansas's defense is for real at all. I think we know that they're just an absolute glass cannon, right? And if Illinois can stop the run, right, and maybe limit some of those explosive pass plays, and they themselves can run the ball, and Luke Altmaier can play as well as he did last week, I think Illinois wins this game. I take Illinois to win straight up, which means I'm also taking them to cover, I guess. Not as this will be an official play for me. Illinois +3 is an official play for me. I was a bonehead for not getting it at 3.5. Still like it at 3. I don't care.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think Jason Bean's fantastic. I think Kansas at home. I think that crowd is gonna be really up for that. I think they're really high on this team this year with the success they had last year. I do worry about Jalen Daniels playing. I do think if he does play in a one possession game, he can make a play that Jason Bean can't and just and change the outcome of the game. You know, that's how special he is with the ball in his hands. So that's what worries me. I do think either way, I think Illinois' defense is special. I think they're really going to show up this year. I think they're going to be ticked off about what happened last week and the disrespect they're getting this week after struggling with Toledo. Luke Altmaier in his first road game, it'll be tough for sure. But yeah, I like them getting Isaiah Williams more involved, some of the other running backs, and really being able to lean on getting the ball out of Altmaier's hand and those guys making plays because I think there's talent there. And then that defensive line, obviously, super special. Keith Randolph and company, they're elite, and I think they're really gonna cause Kansas high flying offense some fits, even though it's a veteran offensive line. Even though a lot of those guys have played together, they even have an offensive line that's kind of questionable as well, which could impact them as well. But yeah, give me Illinois to cover. Give me Illinois to win as well on the road there for the Big Ten West to get a win over the Big 12.
Yeah. Last point I want to make. DeQuan Finn tore up Illinois' defense, like with his athleticism. I think Illinois' linebackers are kind of not equipped for that. And I think they thought that they were equipped, to like spy on them. And just when they got one-on-one, they just, I don't know. It feels like I trust his staff to make those changes defensively. I trust them to contain Kansas a little bit. I like this game a lot. Feed me Illinois +3.
Real quick, and lastly to add on to Illinois' outlook for the year, if you do lose this game, obviously Kansas wins this game. You're catapulting yourself into Big 12 play where you can make some move and some noises in the Big 12, which you'd love to see for Kansas. But if Illinois loses this game, all of your goals of winning a Big 10 West are still in front of you, right? You're still figuring out, Luke Altmaier is still settling in there. You got some new faces, defensive coordinator wise, other high talented players that you lost from last year's team. You're still figuring out how to replace them. I wouldn't throw it in the towel if you're Illinois. If you struggle with Toledo and you lose to Kansas on the road, I would not throw in the towel yet. I know me and you are both super high in Illinois. I think if you're looking at that over-under win total, I think you're a little bit more worried about taking the over on Illinois in terms of, getting up to, I think their lines of 6.5 or 7. But I think in terms of winning Big Ten West, you can absolutely accomplish all of your goals because it's not a conference game, and that's the beauty of that. If you're a team like Illinois.
Notre Dame at NC State. Over a touchdown line in this game. Now, before these last couple weeks, I would have said, feed me NC State +7.5.
Oh, I know you would.
After last week, look, I trust Robert and I with my life. All right. I know he's going to start opening up the playbook a little bit more. I know that Bradley Rosner got to camp late and, he hasn't had a lot of time to work in. And when he did, he was in the game, he did well, right? He had a big time catch there in the fourth quarter. Not that it mattered a whole lot that when they were up like 14 to UConn. They let up a couple explosive plays in the run game, which does worry me because Notre Dame has a stable of running backs and an absolute units at both tackle spots, which leads me to believe that they might be able to find a way to kind of eliminate Peyton Wilson from this game. So if you were to actually force me to, I think Notre Dame wins, right? I think, look, it's always dangerous week 2, right? Making assumptions. You know what they say about week 1 assumptions? They're just going to make, well, you know what out of you and me, right? So, but I after watching these, Notre Dame, I've seen 2 games of Sam Hartman playing fantastic. This defense playing okay. Actually good. They played good. Except Navy, they let Navy run the ball a little bit. But I'll say, yeah, give me Notre Dame to win and give me Notre Dame to cover.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more fascinating games, kind of under the radar. I think it's obviously the first real test for Notre Dame. NC State got pushed a little bit more than they wanted to against UConn. But don't think NC State gave their best punch. I think they're going to come out playing a lot better. I think Notre Dame's been playing really, really well. And I expect that to continue, which is why I'm going to take them to win. But I think to win by more than a touchdown on the road at NC State, I think Brennan Armstrong and company, Kevin Conception, a guy is playing well. Bradley Rosner will make a couple big catches in the fourth quarter. In the second half there, I do think NC State will cover. I think it'll be a game, in the second half. Obviously, Robert and I don't think he gave Notre Dame much to watch on film. Again, we talked about that equilibrium, right? NC State played like this. Notre Dame's playing like this. It's sometimes you end up meeting in the middle, and that's where you can find value with betting, and that's where you see upsets happening or surprise wins or close games that you shouldn't expect to happen in college football, because these are 18 to 22-year-old kids, and every week you're going to get something different. I don't know. Now, Sam Hartman is about as reliable as a quarterback there is in college football. So I don't expect him to play bad, but I think a tough road environment. I think NC State, 11 a.m. Notre Dame. Not that they're going to be sleepwalking through it, but I'm going to take NC State to cover, Notre Dame to win.
Okay. Yeah. One other thing too, like also like they went into the UConn game, right? I actually took them to cover -14. That was an official play of mine. Didn't happen. It's my only loss of the week though. So
that was such a trap game, though. That line was too good to be true.
Yeah, and if you're telling me that, look, every coach is like, we're focusing on the here and now, right? We're focusing here and now, right? But if you're telling me that Dave Doran wasn't having some of his staff, look at Notre Dame film all of last week, you're crazy, right? You're crazy. So obviously they weren't going to open up the bag against UConn. They knew that they should take care of business the way that they kind of did. I mean, they still took care of business, right? I mean, they won the game. It was never, I mean, it was close at halftime, but then once you got in the second half, it was better than what the box score says, I think.
Yeah, but you had to run Brendan Armstrong. He had 19 carries.
Yeah.
There's no way that was in the game plan, beforehand.
No.
I think that's more of like I wouldn't call it desperation, but like, okay, we did not put enough packages into this game for us to go out and comfortably get a win. And so Armstrong, you're gonna have to, not only make plays through the air, but also carry the ball 19 times. I like that. I look for that to change. Obviously, I didn't really know he had that in him in terms of 19 times. Like, I don't want him running the ball 19 times. His left arm is awesome. I think he's got some receivers here with Rosner here. I don't want that to happen again. If that happens again, then I think I'm going to lose some money. Not that I'm betting on it, but I think my NC State cover pick will be wrong, and I think Notre Dame will have a lot of success. But yeah.
Okay. Utah at Baylor. The Utes going to Waco. There is not a starting quarterback playing in this game. There's not a starting quarterback playing in this game. I mean, look, Bryson Barnes is okay. I'm not going to say he was a hero last game, because if you take away the first play of the game, I mean, he had a pretty abysmal day throwing the ball in general. But they also ran the ball well against Florida, so they didn't need to necessarily throw the ball effectively. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this line has moved actually to 7.5 now. So I made this graphic earlier today, but if you watch this, it's probably at 7.5. So we'll talk about it like it's at 7.5. So Ed Robertson, what do you think?
I know the staff is high on him. I like him. He's coming over from Mississippi State. He made some plays in the last game, obviously in a losing effort to Texas State, which even if you lose Blake Shapen during that game, you should not need Sawyer Robertson to come in and come from behind and win that game. Obviously TJ Finley did his thing there, and I guess good for him and good for Texas State. We love to see that. Obviously, a team that took in a ton of transfers. I know Baylor, obviously not expecting that at all. Again, we talk about equilibrium games. I'm going to keep saying it. Utah beat Florida, handled them. Everyone's giving them the respect they deserve, quite frankly. Baylor is way down here, and yet that line is at 7, only 7. And in college football, that's not a huge line, I don't think, especially not considering the sample size you have of 2023 in week one. Baylor is at home. I was high on Baylor. I took their over. That was one of my plays in the Big 12. I'm really high on Dave Aranda. I like the team. I like the athleticism here. I don't know. That was really discouraging to see, and I think he was pretty honest about it in his post-game press conference, where they were not ready to play, and I don't know if they'll be ready to play against Utah. I'm gonna go Utah -7. Obviously, though, if they cover -7, they're gonna win that game. I don't think it matters. Cam Rising's hurt. I think Utah can lean on Baylor and suffocate them, and control the ball offensively. Because yeah.
So lines moved to 7.5. Would you still take it at 7.5?
Yes. Yeah.
I man, I have a tough time. I think Florida's offense is really bad, and I don't think Utah's offense is going to do a whole lot. I think they win this game because their defense is that team, right? I'm gonna take Utah to win, Baylor to cover, both 7 and 7.5. So obviously not a play for me, right? But there's just too many question marks here. But I do think Baylor can keep this close, right? I think it's a pretty low point total if I was looking at it correctly, and I do think it's you have that kind of like low variability, right? Which if you're gonna get a touchdown in that game, I think the value would be taking Baylor, I think, in this spot, because I think everyone and their mom is betting Utah. That's why it moved to 7.5. So, but yeah, the totals for a college football game at 47, that's not very high. So
That's
that's
some
like
Big
that.
Ten West stuff.
Well, that's Purdue, Virginia Tech. Now Purdue actually put up some points last week, and maybe both those teams' defense like aren't fantastic. But that's just for reference, right? Like Miami of Ohio, UMass, right, is at 45 right now. So it's right in that. They're saying that this game's going to be right in that ballpark offensively. I think both these teams, now Baylor's defense struggled mightily. TJ Finley looked like an absolute dog, which I don't know if he is. Maybe he's a dog. I don't know. But I also don't think Florida's defense is that impressive. And while Utah was able to run on them, they kind of relied on some penalties to push to get down the field and finish some drives. So yeah, give me Utah to win, Baylor to cover.
If you're Baylor, and obviously you think Utah's going to win, we both do. Even if you cover, you're 0-2, right? When you should have been at least 1-1. And if you're 1-1 and at least you play a close game with Utah, you have some hope for the season. Instead, you're going to be 0-2. What are your outlooks on the season if you're a Baylor fan, or if you're a Baylor for Baylor? I mean, that
Or
can't
if
be
you're
good.
better, or if you bet them over 7 wins.
Okay, me.
I love it because I mean, that was me last year. I took their over like 7.5, and it did not work out. So I get it, man. I get it. But I mean, this is a better team than I think they played last week. You're right. The equilibrium, I think it's going to start resolving itself at least a little bit. Once you come into the Big 12 too, like stuff happens in the Big 12. So this does not mean Baylor's season's over at all. But yeah, it was concerning to see that last week for sure. Purdue at Virginia Tech. Wow. First year coach versus a second year coach. Yup. And guess what? Who would have thought Virginia Tech favored by 3 at home against a Big Ten team? That's not named Rutgers, Indiana. Yeah, that's it. Or Northwestern. That's pretty good to me.
Yeah, I think Purdue, again, we talk about equilibrium. I think they're in wounded animal mode already in week 1 under Ryan Walters there. They lost to Fresno State, a team I think we both have a lot of more respect for them, and Mikey Keene there playing quarterback for Fresno State. And it's not that we predicted Fresno State to win, and we weren't surprised that Purdue lost, right? They had to go to, I think it was at Fresno State, if I'm not mistaken. And again, you got another away game, Virginia Tech. Luckily for them, it's going to be a noon kickoff for them, local time there. So it's not going to be, Enter Sandman at night game for Virginia Tech. But obviously,
yeah.
I think the crowd will still be out for it. I think Virginia Tech will be ready to play. But I don't know. I want to say Purdue +3 and the win, because I just think they're a better football team than Virginia Tech. I think I'm still another year away from really believing in Virginia Tech and trusting that they can go and get a win against a quality, or I guess a pretty quality Power Five opponent in Purdue. You know,
Yeah, I mean, look, Grant Wells wins the start against Kyron Jones, right? Which Virginia Tech fans, I think they were hoping that Kyron Jones was gonna, win that job. And when he didn't, I think a lot of Tech fans were thinking, "Oh boy, here we go again."
mm-hmm.
He played well last game, probably his best game that I've seen him play. But I mean, he was still like he looked better than he has, right? But is it enough? I don't. I don't understand this line. It just smells so smelly. It was at 3.5, and we were talking about this the other day, and I should have gotten it at 3.5. I hesitated because I was just thinking, oh, it's at Virginia Tech. I don't know, man. I think it's like you said, like Virginia Tech looked good last week, against a not very good team, and Purdue, uh, offensively looked well against Fresno State. Defensively didn't, but also Fresno State. Their offense is so underrated. Mikey Keene is a good quarterback. Like he's a power five quarterback playing at Fresno State, right? So I think I mean the line showed it too. It was 3.5. It's not like it was crazy that they lost. It was like, oh no, like it was like, oh, they didn't bring their A game, right? And they lost a football game. So yeah, give me Purdue to win and Purdue to cover, obviously. Inherently if they're winning, they're covering. I just I don't see it for this Virginia Tech team. Now, we are gigantic Brent Key fans here. This show is known for being Brent Key fans, and we will continue to be Brent Key fans, especially on the recruiting trail. Y'all are absolutely dogs right now. And I think you're bringing in some nice linebackers. I think you actually have decent linebackers on this team, but defensively, we'll see. I think Purdue's going to be a little bit better on offense than I think people think, right? And we saw that a little bit in the Fresno State game. And I think Virginia Tech might find out this week.
Yeah, I want to make a quick correction. Purdue was actually at home, and Fresno State went into to West Lafayette and got a win. I think Fresno State's going to make some noise in the Mountain West. I think we're both pretty high on them. Purdue week one, new head coach, new quarterback, a lot of change there. It was gonna be rough no matter what. I think they're gonna settle in here week two, back against the wall already. Under Ryan Walters there, I think Purdue goes in, gets a Big Ten win, considering they're underdogs there in Blacksburg.
This is a massive game. This is a massive game. And it's not being talked about enough because there's a lot of other marquee games around here. But these are two coaches that are, well, Jimbo's on the hot seat. But if
His
something
seat's warm. His seat's warm for
his seat's,
sure.
if something happens really bad again this year, I mean, the boosters are going to raise the money. And, there's a lot of questions about Mario Cristobal. He brought in a not so great staff last year. Can he hire staff? Can he get it right? Both teams improved immensely in the offseason. And I think both teams looked pretty good this past weekend. Texas A&M, we talked about it in our week one recap. They threw the ball better than they've thrown the ball. Gosh. Well, I guess they threw the ball well in the LSU game last year and the Ole Miss game last year, which were both games that were later in the season. And
And
that was
kind of
Connor
like Wigman started. Yeah.
And Connor Wigman started those games. But yeah, this line has been creeping down ever so slightly. It's at 5.5, 4.5, 3.5. If this hits 3, I'm hitting Texas A&M -3. I will. I'll do it. I don't care. I know I'm an A&M fan. I'm biased, but A&M is more talented, right? And Miami, it's not really huge home field advantage. Bring back the Orange Bowl. Come on, what are we doing? But I do think what could be a problem though is Miami's defensive line it's not terrible, right? And A&M I think struggled offensively running the ball. They didn't like if you look at sure they averaged like 4.5 yards a carry, almost 5 yards a carry. A lot of that came on a big run, right? It didn't look like they were dominating, right? Now they're starting a true freshman at right tackle, but like, yeah, I get it that you're not gonna be able to throw the ball over the top of Miami like you did last week, right? With you got 2 potential NFL safeties for Miami covering deep, right? So I think Bobby Petrino's gonna have to get creative. He's gonna have to take advantage of matchups, which I'm excited for because that's absolutely his bread and butter. He does it all the time. I mean, he literally did it last week. I mean, he was unbelievable doing that. But Yeah, so even at 3.5, right? If you're, it's not a play for me at 3.5, but if you were to tell me pick a team to win, pick a team to cover, I'm gonna go with my Aggies minus 3.5 at Miami.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Aggies to win. I'm gonna go Aggies to cover. I think playing on the road does not matter for A&M. I think obviously if you're Miami, you're relieved you don't have to go to Kyle Field and play in that environment. Obviously, I think like you said, this is such a big game for the coaches and the momentum of these programs, which is crazy because both of these teams are, I think, significantly better than they were last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But the problem is someone's going to be really upset. Now, if you're Miami, and if you lose, 38-35, you're going to be upset, obviously. But I mean, you're gonna feel a little bit better than if you flip that score around. If you're A&M that loses by 3 to Miami, because I think Jimbo Fisher is obviously definitely a couple more years into the building of his program than Mario Cristobal at Miami. Another interesting thing is I'm glad you brought up those safeties, and I'm really high on Cam Kitchens and James Williams, obviously. And Lance Guillory, I think he's going to put him in good positions in terms of like blitzing and giving Wigman different pre-snap and post-snap reads and changing the frame for him, is what they say. But I think, like you said, Bobby Petrino is going to take advantage of those safeties in terms of if you're Evan Stewart or Moose Muhammad or Noah Thomas or Anai Smith, any of those 4 guys, and if you're one-on-one with a safety and you're Wickman, you should have the green light to throw that ball every time and the confidence to throw that ball up there to those teams, to those players. I think A&M's skill positions this year with Bobby Petrino are going to really take advantage of them. If they can't run the ball, that's going to hurt them for sure. But I think they're going to be able to have chunk plays in the passing game, which has not been true in recent A&M teams, which is different about this year's team. And they got to stop the run, right? Miami has a couple of really good backs: Henry Parrish, Ajay Allen, the true freshman, Fletcher, Mark Fletcher, obviously, and Tyler Van Dyke, fine too. But you got to stop the run, which is not what you did last year at all in your season in the SEC. But hopefully another year with these freshman defensive linemen becoming sophomores, Malik Jackson, back and healthy, and hopefully DJ Turkin finally learning how to run a defense for A&M. Hopefully then I'm taking A&M and the points. I think they're gonna win this game. I think A&M's a little bit more desperate than Miami is, and being disrespected. I think A&M feels that.
Yeah, I also mentioned this on Texags Radio. Like, this is a linchpin game, right? If I see both sides of the offensive and defensive line like winning battles in the trenches, this Miami offensive line is probably going to be the second, maybe third best offensive line that we see all year. Legitimately, that could be the case, right? There's not going to be a whole lot of offensive lines we're going to play that are going to be better, right? Unless
Certainly
you
not
make,
LSU right now.
yeah, not LSU right now. Maybe they will be by the end of the season, right? But yeah, defensive line they upgraded. So I am interested to see how we do up front there, and the linebackers, they're rotating a lot, so they don't really have they don't really know what they have there yet either. So it would concern me if Miami was getting a good push on us.
The over-under is a 51 right now on September 6th when we're recording this. So Vegas sees this game in the 20s. If you get into the high 30s and low 40s in terms of a shootout game, do you feel good enough to win the game?
Do I feel good enough to win
Do
the
you,
game?
do you think that helps you as an A&M fan, or do you think it helps Miami if Miami's in a shootout?
Yeah, I think it helps us. I think
I
Tyler
agree.
Van Dyke is more turnover prone, right? Well, Connor Wigman, while being young, he has proven to take care of the ball pretty decently, right? In his time, he's a couple fumbles, but no picks. But
Yeah,
I
and if
trust
you
us
get
in a
into
shootout.
if you get into first stop wins with the weapons that A&M has out wide, I really darn scary and going to be hard to stop them, right? Um, Obviously, if you're A&M, you want to control the game early and get ahead, but look ahead. If you're Miami, lose this game, I, I I don't think you worry too much. You obviously want to see some promise. You can't get blown out. You got to look like you belong on the field in terms of athlete for athlete. I think that's a big thing for Miami fans want to see, even in a loss. You can know if they belong on the field or not with A&M. And if A&M wins, obviously, um, it's a huge momentum boost for them and get some respect back into A&M's team and roster, which they haven't had in a couple years.
Ole Miss at Tulane. It's interesting. It's kind of like why this game is so important is that like if Tulane beats Ole Miss and they run the table, there's an argument that they should get in to the college football playoffs for sure. There's an argument.
But they would need some help, obviously. But
They need
there's
South
like
Alabama. They need South Alabama to look really good. They need the AAC to step up more so in some out of conference games. But
well, yeah. And if you're Tulane and you're arguing for precedent, right? You saw Cincinnati do it, where in year one, right, or the year prior, obviously, to making the playoffs, they were really good, really successful, like Tulane was last year. Really good, really successful, beat a really good team in USC in the bowl game. And then you have a quality win in the out of conference. And then you run the table in year two where you have that already predetermined respect. I think that's definitely your pathway if you're Tulane.
yeah, so on that note, I think this Tulane's team's a good football team. I also think this Ole Miss team is also good. Like their starters are good. Their starters are good enough, right? To play at a pretty high level. Um, both teams in the AP top 25. If you ask me to pick a side, I think I like it's at Tulane, right? Yeah, I don't think
Yes,
it's an
yes,
intersite
which
game.
is important.
Yeah, I like if you're gonna give me a touchdown, give me Tulane +7. I do think Ole Miss wins the game though.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna agree with you there. I think Ole Miss wins. I think Tulane +7. I think Tulane beat a pretty darn good South Alabama team last week, and they were up 24, 7 on them in the second quarter, and they kind of made it close in the third quarter, but then, Tulane scored 13 unanswered, to close out the game and pull away. But Michael Pratt, I think is a really good player. They got some nice pieces on this Tulane team. Jaquan Jackson, obviously a good playmaker for him. And the thing that hesitates me because if you watched our SEC previews, I was not as high on Ole Miss in terms of longevity and their win total, and neither of us were, I don't think, because the depth is not there. The problem is in week two, Ole Miss played Mercer last week and beat them by like 90. They're healthy, right? And so they avoided injuries,
Oh
and
yeah.
so you're gonna get the A team for Ole Miss instead of if you're week 10, you might get the JV squad with a couple of varsity players sprinkled in there. So that's what's tough if you're Tulane drawing early. If you're Ole Miss, things you have to do, you have to win the game and you have to avoid injuries. If you do that, I don't really care how you look. Move on. It's a tough out of conference game on the road. Give me a win, avoid injuries. That's all I'm gonna ask for. If I'm Lane Kiffin and a fan of Ole Miss, that's all you really care about.
Yeah, if they get an SEC play, especially deep in SEC play, and this team is healthy, like this is a scary team to play when they're healthy, for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
This
for
is an
sure.
unbelievably scary team to play when they're healthy. But yeah, like you talked about win total wise, betting the over is not necessarily there's certain other risks that you have to consider with that. But yeah, so we both like Tulane to cover, but Ole Miss to win. These are both really good teams. So well, I hope Tulane's a good team. I don't really know if they're a good team yet. I hope they're a good team. I love Michael Pratt. Look at him right there. What a stud. What
He
a
was
stud.
14 of 15 last week against a pretty darn good South Alabama team. 14 for 15, 294 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, it's hard to open the season much better than that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ole Miss will be a lot different. Pete Golding there will hopefully try to confuse Michael Pratt in the offense there. But yeah, I think it's a really fascinating game. Credit to
or
Ole
he'll
Miss.
confuse or he'll confuse his defense.
The linebackers won't know what to do. As you saw week one with Deontay Lawson actually for Alabama making plays. But regardless, credit to Ole Miss for going on the road to play Tulane. I think this is awesome for college football. You saw, Purdue did a home and home with Fresno State. I think UCLA is on the road against San Diego State this week. You're seeing more of that, and I
Alabama's
love
going to US or UCF or USF later.
US. Yeah, that's awesome. I think college football needs that.
That's
And if you're
awesome.
like, if you're a student Tulane, like you're gonna get up for this game. Like it's 2:30.
Oh
I know it's
yeah,
I know it's hot in New Orleans. Like that's gonna be a rowdy environment. And I think
it's
Ole Miss,
not.
obviously,
I was gonna say
I,
it's not a
I,
far drive from Oxford to New Orleans at all.
so stuff.
Iowa at Iowa State. As it is annually, it's under a touchdown, of course. Um, week one, look, both teams, they got new quarterbacks. Right, obviously, Hunter Decker's not playing for Iowa State. Iowa came out looking really good offensively, and you were like, "Whoa, this could be a team." But then what happened? Also, this line's at 3.5 now, I believe. So classic. But
Well, you can, but yeah, shop lines, obviously, like we said,
yep,
just because ours says 4, try to get at 3.5 if you want Iowa, or if you're Iowa State, try to get it at 4, whatever you can find, obviously.
yeah. So what? Iowa State too. Rocco Beck, did he look that good? No, I didn't think he looked all that good in game one, especially against not an insanely talented team that they were
Well,
going up against there.
he left with injury, I think, a little bit. He was out, and then JJ Cole came in and did nothing special, and then Beck came back in at the end of the game. But
What I'm saying is
I
he didn't look all that special. I get it that
no,
he came out, but I get it. I don't know.
yeah, oh yeah. I think with Iowa, Cade McNamara, and then they came out hot, obviously early. Or Latchley, the two tight ends, him and Eric
E-
Ali.
Eric All, yeah.
Eric Ali, thank you. They're obviously pretty impressive. Caleb Johnson, the running back, but I part of me thinks that Iowa kind of shut off the playbook. I think they didn't really care about scoring, that what's that 25 points per game that Brian Ferentz needs to keep his job. I think they were just content with getting a win and saving, their best look for this game, obviously.
Yeah. This is, to me, I still think Iowa State's defense is good. Well, I want to believe it's good. This is a rivalry game in Ames. I mean, I think it's crazy to think that Iowa State would win this game, right? So I'm taking Iowa to win the game, but I don't think it's crazy to think that Iowa State can cover the +4. Well, depending where you get 3.5, 4. Obviously, if you're taking Iowa State, we'll talk about it at 4, right? It's minus or +3.5 at -115 on DraftKings. So it's kind of basically 4. And that means it's 4 probably in other places. But yeah, give me Iowa State to cover, Iowa to win.
Yeah, I just caution everybody in the state of Iowa, especially student athletes, be careful on betting this game because we saw what happened, in the offseason. Um,
Yow.
uh, no, I'm sorry. All jokes aside, yeah, give me Iowa to win and Iowa to cover. I like
Really?
Iowa
Okay.
State. Yeah, I think Iowa's a wagon this year. I think we saw half of what they're going to do offensively against Utah State. I'm excited to see. Well, I'm not excited as a Minnesota fan to see Cade McNamara open it up, but I think he's got the ability to do it with that offense, and they got some playmakers there, underratedly. So, and obviously, that defense will be playing well. Cooper DeJean, it's a monster. Yeah, give me Iowa on the road. But again, I'm not going to touch this game with a 10-foot pole because it's a rivalry game, because you have no
Yeah.
idea. This is always such a grind of a game. A great atmosphere, obviously, going to be in Ames, Iowa. Tough for Iowa to go there, even though it's not far away from Iowa City. It's still going to be rowdy and tough to go in there and get a win. But I think they're going to do it. I think they'll cover.
Yeah, so the over under is at 36, right? So inherently, right at +4, that means that the books have Iowa 20, Iowa State 16, right? Um, do you think Iowa scores more than that? Right. So what is the number that Iowa State needs to get to cover this?
I think if Iowa State needs to score over 21. Oh, no, that's not true at all. They could win this game 13-9 for all I care. Um, ideally, I think these teams, if I were to bet anything on this game, I would bet the over. Because I think both these offenses are going to play
Wow.
a little bit better than we've seen in the past. But obviously, it's Iowa State. This game is always, fighting tooth and nail. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'll certainly. I call me like sicko, whatever you want to call me. I love watching this game every single
Yep.
year.
It
I love it.
delivers. It always delivers.
It delivers in the most obscure ways that you couldn't think of. Blocked punts, blocked field goals, interceptions, random fumbles, huge sacks, absolutely airmailing balls wherever. Like this is an awesome game. I can't. I just sound like I was dogging on both of those teams there because I actually took Iowa's over win total, and not in our official Big 12 previews, right? This is like a play that I made all the way back in January. I took Iowa State like over 5 wins. So realistically, I actually technically have money on both these guys, but gosh, I wish I had a cash out option so bad. And if it was, it's probably terrible, but I don't care. I need to check if there's a cash out option there so I can just get out of there because I don't know what the future looks like for Iowa State. But for all I know, they come out and win this game like they sometimes do. So I
Well,
again
and
can't reiterate how excited I am for this game.
what's it? It's the Cyhawk series, right? A Cyhawk game.
Yeah.
Which obviously I'd like to see a little bit more creative name, because there are such like the Floyd or Rosedale I was in with Minnesota. Like there's some creative things, the Civil War, Oregon State. I will say Iowa State has been known to beat some much better Iowa teams in this game. So obviously
Yes.
I would not be surprised with anything. Even though I'm taking Iowa to cover, I would win. I would not be surprised with anything.
Oregon at Texas Tech is an even smellier game to me this week because of what happened to Texas Tech in Laramie last week. I don't want to say that was a fluke because Wyoming won that game for sure. But weird things happen in Laramie, man. We talked about it a little bit. I mean, it was windy. The game got delayed. It's thin air. It's hard to play there. The crowd was getting up and after it, even though Wyoming's like the least densely populated state in the entire continental United States. But yeah, I think that was just weird. And the difference here in this game too is Texas Tech gets Oregon at home. So it is weird to me that more people aren't taking Oregon -6. Like I'm surprised this line is at 6.5. Actually, I wonder if it's moved. If I can look at that right now, but I'm very surprised that this is at 6.5 because when I first looked at it, my first instinct was like boom, oh, but then you got to remember it's week 2. Week 2, that's where your instincts give you kind of a faux, like a pseudo realism of like what these teams actually are, right? Because we don't know. We actually don't know. I like betting on teams week 2 that, not that they confirmed my priors, but like a team that maybe didn't showcase a whole lot week 1, or like maybe another team that two teams that played well, right? But I just think one's better, like more certainty, right? Like, I don't know, but let's see. I'm trying to find this Oregon game. Oh yeah, it's still at 6.5. So, but I think Texas Tech, they struggled to run the ball against Wyoming. This does not bode well for Oregon. But Tyler Shuck is still a dog. But it also the over under is at 68.5. There's a good chance that Oregon puts up real numbers here in Lubbock. Like, I mean, they were buzzing. I know it was Portland State. Okay, whatever. But look, they were buzzing. They're buzzing. So, and there is a lot of buzz about this Oregon team being for real on both sides of the ball. Because Dan Lanning, right? Defensive coordinator, come from Georgia. The expectation is you get better on defense. He went in the transfer portal, got some guys. Although we know Texas Tech also has some dudes. So if you were to tell me to pick, I just think it's at home. I don't like the 6.5 number, but gosh, if it was at 7, it would be for sure pick for me. Not a play, but a pick, right? Give me Oregon to win, Texas Tech to cover. That sounds crazy based on the way that those two teams went last week. But give me Oregon to win, Texas Tech to cover. That's kind of a feel thing, right? I trust Joey McGuire that much. right?
Yeah.
And it might like Oregon might look fantastic, but Texas Tech also might look really good too. Um, we'll see, man. We'll see. Also, the first road game of the year for teams is always not. It doesn't always go how you think it's going to go, right? The first road game of the year is not always easy, especially in a place like Lubbock, right, where it's going to be hot. It's going to be
Uh-huh.
hot there. I get it's a 6 p.m. start. It is Central Time. So let's see, 6 p.m. Central Time. So it'll be a little bit cooler, like by the time like the second half rolls around. But I mean, it's gonna be in the hundreds there. So can Oregon handle the heat? Is my question.
I'll tell you again, we talked about week 2 is the week of equilibrium games. Oregon put up 81 points against Portland State and Texas Tech lost to Wyoming, right? There's going to be some kind of comeback down to earth for Oregon, and you got to believe, which we do in Joey McGuire and that roster and that staff, especially for Texas Tech to come to raise their level just a little bit. I think, and another thing you said, first row game, everyone talked about the big question on Oregon's offense, especially was the O line. You're putting in a lot of new pieces, and against Portland State in Eugene, Oregon, right? It's not going to be a big deal, but against Texas Tech and against in Lubbock, that's not going to be easy for Bo Nix to make all of his checks and get into the right run reads and whatever else he can do with a new offensive line breaking in. 6.5 feels like such a trap. I mean, I when I first saw this, my first instinct is that's way too low. But my second instinct is don't touch it because it's too good to be true. I think I'm gonna agree with you. I think Texas Tech is gonna cover here. I think Oregon and gets a win here. I think Texas Tech again, wounded animal mode, desperation game. And then their defense coordinator, right, coming over from Oregon, right, a little bit of revenge game.
Yeah.
He has familiarity with that Oregon staff and Bo Nix and the receivers, Bucky Irving. I think if you go position for position, Oregon is pretty much better than Texas Tech, just about most places. But I think Texas Tech has some dogs. Taj Brooks runs really hard, and they didn't even get him going last game. He had
Yeah.
11 carries.
Yeah.
11 carries. So yeah, so we'll see about Texas Tech.
Tim DeRuyter revenge game. I didn't even think about that. I think we talked about it like in the off season, but
Yeah.
Tim DeRuyter's a dog. And this is a Tim DeRuyter revenge game. I love it that Joey McGuire can just go into Oregon and just pluck out an elite defensive coordinator. Yeah, that's my Joey McGuire, baby. Wow.
This is my favorite
There
game of the week, by the way. By the way,
this is
this is my favorite game.
this is also reminiscent for me because last year I took Washington State plus 17.5. Oh my gosh, they won straight up. These are two teams. One team you're not very high on, and the other team you're really high on. And the line is at 6.5. Whoa. Again, another one of those we talked about key numbers being for like a lot of these games this weekend. That's definitely a key number, 6.5. So
Vegas knows that Vegas is not too keen on putting Wisconsin that line above 7. And when you say high on Washington State and low on Wisconsin, it's all relative in terms of the expectations for each of these programs. I think year 1 of Luke Fickell, especially week 2 of Luke Fickell, I don't think they figured out the defense quite yet. I really don't. I think Cam Ward has the talent to really, really do some damage in this game and take over this game. I'm praying for a breakout game. I'm not betting this game because I'm kind of hoping on the unknown of Cameron Ward and playing his best game for Washington State. But I think the matchup is there. I think this Wisconsin defense is vulnerable. And I think Cam Ward, I think he's going to put up numbers. And he did in week 1. Obviously, I wasn't an elite team. Went up, you beat Colorado State. They put up 50 points, though, which is impressive. And they gave up some touchdowns late, with Texas Tech. With Colorado State. They gave up some touchdowns late. But, yeah, their defense got to step up. Their linebackers are going to have to come and bring their A game. Braylon Allen, even in a new system, I thought looked pretty good. Ches Malusi obviously had 150 yards. Um, with
Yeah.
Wisconsin, the other running back there who's kind of gets less run than Braylon Allen in terms of national hype, NFL draft hype. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't think the culture and the play style is quite ready for Wisconsin to go in to Washington State and pull out a win. I'm actually going to go Washington State to win and obviously cover as underdogs there. I'm calling my
Whoa.
shot. I think they do it again. I think they sweep Wisconsin 2 years in a row. And yeah. And then all the naysayers, Luke Fickle going to come out and be like, you can't do this with Wisconsin. I think it's going to be awesome. And I think this is going to confirm, that over Washington State win total that I'm pretty feeling good about. This will just be the gravy for it.
You're not gonna be happy about this, but I'm gonna take Wisconsin to win, and I'm gonna take them to cover in our picks. Right, these are not plays for us, by the way. These are
No.
we'll have our plays at the end of the show. Here on the show, we make picks for these previews matches. Right, Wisconsin. Look, Phil Longo. I know we said like, oh, the dairy raid, how's it gonna work? In the cold, can't necessarily throw the ball, but it's not like he's never run the ball before. Right, he had 2,000-yard running backs. And honestly, he's given both of those guys some carries and, giving Braylon Allen carries in the fourth quarter with fresh legs. That's pretty crazy to me. That's something that we haven't seen in Wisconsin. Just a second running back being in there so that their elite running back can actually get uh, relief of some kind. I don't think Tanner Mordecai played all that well. In fact, historically, he plays terribly against Power 5 teams. And, oh, here it is, Power 5 team on the road. I don't think Washington State's defense is all that good. I just think Wisconsin is going to be able to run the ball like they do, like they always have. It feels like they don't have to change their identity for this game. I do think Cam Ward might be able to take advantage of some things, right? But that offensive line still has gigantic question marks. I know Wisconsin lost Nick Herbig and Keanu Benton, but I think if Wisconsin can find ways to get pressure on Cam Ward, he does not do well, especially like interior pressure, which still bewilders me how they won this game last year, right? With Keanu Benton getting interior pressure up the middle. Cam Ward does not do well with interior pressure. And if they're able to find any of that, get some linebackers going. Obviously no Jim Leonard this year, but I think Wisconsin wins and covers. Little
For obvious
fade
reasons,
action.
I hope you're wrong. Go Cougars,
Yeah.
baby.
Go Cougs. Look, and I'm Jake Digger's biggest fan. All right. We know this. But me fading him in this, I'm not fading him, right? This is a Luke Fickle. This is a Wisconsin favorability, right? We have to make a pick. Obviously, it's not a play. I'm not going to bet against Jake Dickard. That's crazy. That'd be crazy to do. He was a wagon all year last year. Over under cash. I think I was 4-1 when I bet on him last year. Gosh, wagon. But give me Wisconsin to win and cover. Arizona at Mississippi State. What I think is a very under the radar game. Way so under the radar game. And this game's not going to be played super late at night like it was last year. I think it was 11 p.m. game Central. Because it was played on the West Coast. This year, it's going to be played in Starkville. And with a little home and home action, the line's 10, 9.5 some places, right? So make sure you're line shopping if you, depending on what side you want, right? This is an interesting game. I think both teams looked really good last week. I think both teams have a lot of, I want to say hype, not like hype to win their respective conferences, but like hype in the sense where like they return a lot of guys, right? And there's talent on both these teams. And I think the players buy into these coaches. Now, Mississippi State has a new coach, but I think they buy into Zach Arnett there. They really do.
How could you not?
How could you not? And it's going to be tough, I think, for Arizona. Look, if Jaden Delora goes in there and he starts turning the ball over like he has some days, some games, trying to make too big of a play, I think this game could get out of hand like it did last year a little bit. This is a game, I think it was like 16.5. I think I took it Mississippi State, they covered last year, so that was awesome. But I stayed up way too late watching that game. It was looking a sweat until the fourth quarter, but uh, this year is a little different. I think Mississippi State might be in a dogfight here, no pun intended. But give Mississippi State to win, but give me Arizona to cover +10. Right? 9.5, I guess, if you but I'm just gonna say +10. It was +10 when I made the graphic. All right, guys, come on. Cut me some slack here. Here we go.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think Arizona's a really intriguing team. I don't think right now I plan on betting against them much, um, with actual like monetary values and whatever else. But in terms of just picking, I think Mississippi State's gonna play really, really complimentary football. Not only offense and defense, which they've done in the past, even under Mike Leach with Zach Arnett there, defense corner, but with Will Rogers and Jaquavion Marks. I mean, I get it. It was Southeast Louisiana, right? But Jaquavion Marks had 19 carries, right? 127 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns and only long 37. So it wasn't like it was, one big 80-yard run, right? That just got all the run. They had 300 yards rushing. And I get it. It was a blowout. So obviously you're running the ball more often. The back quarterback came in and got a couple big runs, but I don't know. I know you're high on Mississippi State. I think I am too. I think they're going to come really ready to play and show
Super
out.
high. I took Mississippi State's over 6.5 wins. I'm
Yeah.
super high on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think they're going to win and they're going to cover here. For Zach Arnett's kind of coming out party in terms of the national stage.
Look, I hope they do. It'd be a lot easier for my win total, my sweatiness. It's tough to sweat overs, right? Week 2, but this one feels like one that Mississippi State's got to get if we're gonna hit the 6.5. But yeah, I mean they were number 1 in the country last year with over 44 passes per game. Whew, that's a lot. And like you said, they ran the ball 19 times. Jaquavion Marks, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. Come on, and also you know what? He was also active catching the ball as well. So, and we know he's good at catching the ball, right? If you're a Mississippi State fan, you know what Jaquavion Marks about, right? But yeah, I just think Jaden Delore could make some big plays here. Mississippi State's still testing out a new era secondary, right? You lost a lot of key pieces there. That's probably the biggest question mark of this defense is the secondary. And I think Arizona has the weapons on the outside to potentially put up some points, maybe some explosive plays, right? I don't think they're going to run the ball very well at all. I think Mississippi State's interior defensive line is way too good for that, and the linebackers are fine. I think it's really going to come down to, can Will Rogers manage this game? Can Zach Arnett dial up some stuff and put pressure on Jaden Delore to turn the ball over? Can Will Rogers take care of the football? So I think this is a close game. If I was to predict the score on this game, the over-under is at 60.5, right? If I was to predict the score, I'd actually say this probably goes over. My guess would be 35-31, Mississippi State.
Ooh, that close.
I think
you think a late touchdown
close
with Arizona? You think they backdoor cover? Or you think it's actually a 1-possession game in the fourth quarter?
I think it's a backdoor cover. And maybe they get the ball back with like a minute to go and they just don't have it in them. I think it could be a 1-possession game.
That would be pretty impressive if you're Jedd Fisch. They're even not, getting the win, but being right there at the SEC at Mississippi State. And that's, yes, nationally, Mississippi State doesn't get the respect they deserve, and not rightfully that they should get. But that's not an easy place to play. Starkville is tough, and it's a night game, and they'll be fired up for that for sure. There,
yeah. And look, if Zach Arnett, right, he hasn't had a lot. I mean, he coached the Illinois game, right? He hasn't had a lot of experience. Like, look, if Arizona comes and makes this a close game, I would still be, on the other hand, one, impressed with Jedd Fisch, but I'd also be impressed with Zach Arnett. If they kept their composure and held on the football and did what they needed to do to win the football game, I will still be just as impressed. Our last preview, we're going to talk about the marquee game. Everyone's talking about Texas at Alabama. This line has been moving like bonkerishly since the offseason. It was like 10 point, 11 point. There was like 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. It came all the way down to 6.5, I think. Now it's it was 7 when it opened this week. It's back to 7.5. It's bet up. I think there was some people who watched the Texas Rice game and maybe thought had some questions about their offensive line, and maybe some questions like, "Hey, Quinn Ewers get these receivers the ball, right? They have an insane receiving core, probably the best in the country. It's loaded. Can you get those guys the ball? It's a question." And they didn't necessarily run the ball all that well against Rice either, which has been kind of a staple there, especially with Bijan all these last couple of years. But I mean, Bijan didn't even run the ball all that well against Alabama last year, right? So the difference between this year and last year, right? Alabama does not have Bryce Young, but also Alabama gets him at home with an offensive line that is pretty maulerish. And Jaden Milroe looked good against Middle Tennessee State. Granted, it's Middle Tennessee State, but Jaden Milroe threw the ball well.
He did. And I think people talk about, Middle Tennessee State being a pretty good group of 5 team. And it's not like they beat up on some FCS school or like, I'm sorry, but New Mexico State, the past couple of years. But I do think if you're Alabama and you're playing just about any group of 5 team, like the talent gap difference, it's all the same, to be honest to them. I think the level of difficulty for Jalen Monroe, I know he had that one nice play, but in general, I think was not that hard. I think he'll be tested this year. I think Texas defensively, I think this is their key to the game. I think they have to be able to stop the run. The D line, we like a lot. I like a lot. I know. And obviously Bama's O line, I'm high on. The question I want to see is, I'm going to give you an answer here, or a question here, and maybe it was a better question, a week ago or even like 6 months ago in the spring. But if I were to give you a line of how many quarterbacks we will see non-injury related, it's 2.5. What would you take?
You said non-quarterback related injuries.
Yeah. So how many quarterbacks do we see not because of injuries? So she can't. So there's not. But like someone gets pulled. Like someone gets pulled, or like, hey, Jalen Monroe's terrible. Let's throw on Tyler Buckner or Ty Simpson or even Malik Murphy if you're Texas. Like how many quarterbacks are we going to see take meaningful snaps?
Before the season, I would have said 3 would take meaningful snaps, right? For a different reason. I think that number could go up. I think there's a chance. I don't know. I think they really believe in Quinn Ewers. They could throw in Malik Murphy if things are really going bad. But I do think there's still a chance that if Alabama is not finding a way to win this game, I don't think he's won the battle by any means. I mean, he's won the battle for now, right? Jim Milroe. But there's a chance that if things go sideways, which it could, this Texas defense is not bad at all. Things could go sideways, especially at home. Like, they're going to be preparing those backup quarterbacks for sure. And I don't know what it's on their depth chart. Officially, it says, my gut instinct tells me that we would actually see Tyler Buckner first before we saw Ty Simpson, just because of Tommy Reed's familiarity. I don't know. I haven't looked at the depth chart. That's just my gut. So I don't know. Don't quote me on that at all. It might not happen. Might not even matter, right? But I don't know. What have you heard about that depth chart situation? Is Ty Simpson for sure too?
I've heard that Buckner made some moves for sure. I think it'll depend. I think it'll depend on game situation. Like if they're really struggling, maybe you do a spark plug in Ty Simpson's. I think if Milroe gets hurt and you're up 10 points, you probably throw in Buckner because you believe you can manage the game maybe a little bit better than Ty Simpson. But yeah, aside from the quarterback core versus secondary, versus the secondary of Alabama. Texas's receiving core is elite, top to bottom receiver, multiple running backs, tight ends, and obviously Quinn Ewers to get the ball to him. And I don't even think it matters how good Bama's defense is. I think if Texas and Sark and Quinn Ewers especially decides that they want to just ball out, we saw what Ohio State did to Georgia last year. And I'm not comparing Quinn Ewers to CJ Stroud. I'm not comparing Xavier Worthy to Marvin Harrison. But in terms of talent-wise, that team is damn good receiving-wise. And obviously we saw how good Georgia's defense was, and they got shredded. Right? So I think if Texas can really show up and get Bama into a shootout, that's going to change the game. Now, if they struggle early and it's in the like last year, If you would have told me Texas only scored 17 points, I would have said, oh, they got blown out, but they were in a close game. This year, I think with the way Alabama can really lean on you in terms of finishing drives and kind of putting the game away with their run game. I think this game needs to hit the over if you're Texas and you want to win this game. Over's at 54, by the way. So you got to be in around the 30s if you're Texas. I want to feel good about getting a win.
Yeah, I think if this is a shootout, I think Texas can win straight up. For my pick though, I will. It comes down for me is if you were to ask me this a couple weeks ago, I think I would have taken Texas for sure plus 7.5. And I hate being overreactionary to week one, but the offensive line, it was week one, but it didn't look good enough for me to take them plus 7.5 against Bama when Bama is better at literally every single position except quarterback and wide receiver. That's it. Alabama's better in every single spot, maybe tight end.
You think tackle? Offensive tackle with Caden Proctor and no, but I'm getting nitpicky anyways. But
nitpicky,
yeah.
but I'm saying like the offensive line unit as a whole.
Oh,
I'm saying Bama's is better,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So I mean the difference, another difference too is Steve Sarkisian, right, versus Tommy Reese. I think Steve Sarkisian's a little bit better, I guess, more proven. So I don't know. It could be one of those things where Quinn Ewers just says, "Oh, yep, let me just have my legacy game in the biggest game of my entire life," and he just goes and balls out. But I'm going to take Bama to win, and I'm going to take Bama to cover the 7.5.
Now I'm in agreement with you here. I'm taking Bama to win. Bama to cover 7.5. I think they win by around 11. And that's volatile depending on a backdoor cover with Texas. But I really do think this could be an all-time classic. I really do. I think it could be one of those iconic regular season out of conference games that we look on all seasons like, wow, these are two elite teams toe to toe. Texas could lose and not even cover, and I could still feel really darn good about them. And lastly, I want to talk about Quinn Ewers. He could make himself a lot of money today. It doesn't matter what he does the rest of the year. If he balls out against Bama like he did in that first quarter last year, he is going to be wealthy, very wealthy in the NFL draft coming with this April. So yeah, I'm excited. I think obviously for Texas, you're not the better team, so you got to outcoach them and out scheme them. And you can do that obviously with Sark. That's the advantage of having an elite offensive mind as your head coach. But yeah, Alabama's too physical. Brian Tenney Stadium's going to be rocking. I think they're going to lean on Texas. And I think Texas is going to learn a lot from this game. And Bama will be maybe seeing Texas again, later on the line. I think no matter what happens in this game, Texas can still accomplish all their goals, make the playoffs. Bama, same thing if they're on the table in the SEC. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in for our week 2 previews. Sorry we couldn't get to every single game, but if you want a team that we're not covering, because there are a lot of teams out there that we're not able to cover or get to, let us know in the comments. Send us an email to the Redshirt Sophomore at gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soph. It's just at the Redshirt Soph. Send us messages on Twitter and DM us maybe. Hey, we want to see this team. I already got an email from a fan who wants us to cover Cincinnati. Right? Look, if they beat Pitt this weekend, maybe we'll start covering more Cincinnati. And I think they could realistically, but either way, that could be a fun team to cover down the road. We'll for sure get to them. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure we're gonna have all these clips kind of cut up into separate videos. So if you just want to send one preview to one of your buddies, maybe you're a Texas fan, you want to send it to your Bama friend. That's a buddy of yours. Maybe send it to, well, maybe you wouldn't want to if you're a Texas guy, because we did take Alabama to cover and win, of course. But lastly, you guys waited this long. That's the best bets for you guys, right? I already took Liberty minus 10.5, Syracuse minus 23.5. Okay. If you were following our last show, week 1 recap, those were early lines. Liberty might be down to 10 now in some places, actually. So if you waited, congrats. Syracuse is at 24 in most places now. So maybe you can snag a 23.5 somewhere. Just make sure you're shopping. Illinois +3. I'm really mad at myself that I didn't get at 3.5 earlier. Um, maybe you'll sneak one at some other book that's offering it there, but I couldn't find it for what I could take. And give me UCLA -14.5 against San Diego State. Just give it to me. Lay me the points. I know it's an odd number for sure. I don't love taking 14 in the hook, right? But if you're giving me 14 in the hook, right, to a UCLA team that's only got to travel like a few hours, San Diego, for a team that's not looked good these last 2 weeks at all, and Dante Moore's going to have a full week of prep for this game. Feed me that. So that's 4. Liberty -10.5, Syracuse -23.5, Illinois +3, UCLA -14.5. Of course, bet responsibly. You know, like these are just my bets, right? You do not have to ride them. I'm not a financial advisor by any means. But anyways, thank you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy week 2, guys. Enjoy week 2. It's going to be awesome. All those conclusions that you drew week 1 are about to be redrawn after this week. I can't wait. Anything else, CD?
We're back. We are back. We'll see you probably on Sunday or Monday morning for a week 2 recap, obviously, and maybe some early look ahead to the next week. But yeah, enjoy the week. We love it. College ball is back.
Absolutely. See you guys.